It is my honor to introduce ProServe's owner, Sean Lane. Sean has worked in corporate America for some time. He had worked for Tom with ProServe Pools when he was in high school and decided to get back into the industry, bringing with him the tools and business essentials he learned along the way. His experience in corporations brought best practices to ProServe Pools, and today it's a thriving local community minded, family run business for nearly 40 years. Please welcome Sean Lane with ProServe Pools. And he has provider number PVD 1304. This is course number 9633468. Course license CRS 10288, and it's approved for 1CE for OPP, passing Florida Department of Health inspections. Welcome, Sean.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Well, today we're going to spend some time together talking about how to pass those inspections that occur at your pool. So at ProServe, we manage 100 plus commercial properties managing their pool. And that ranges from apartment complexes to condos, HOAs, motels, hotels. And so it really does give us a broad experience. We work with the health inspectors, if not on a daily basis, every other day. We're in communications with them regarding one property or another property or past inspection. So, as Diane said, I started in this business in 1986, and that was the year Tom Cruise had the #1 movie of the year, Top Gun. So that's how long, and that was the original Top Gun. I think the second one's a little bit better, but so our experience covers helping with commercial pools, both from the initial passing inspections so that they can open the pool. So a brand new pool, as an example, we'll work with the builder to help them pass that inspection with both the building department and the Florida Department of Health. Typically at the end of that inspection period, there's a few loose ends that need to be addressed, and so we also have that experience. And then we move after that passing, we move into what we call the lifetime service mode of working with the health department. And we've been doing that, as Diane mentioned, since the 80s. So as the boards change, and this part's really, think about this just for a moment, the continuity. So as a board changes, a service company will also change sometimes. It's just part of the business, but we all know that, and there's not a problem with it. And then the board changes again, and then the service company changes again. So that continuity really makes a difference when you're moving to the next phase of that, helping that property pass their renovation and resurfacing inspection. So if you've gone through a resurfacing project, you know what that's like, and making sure that all of the other that opens up another can of making sure that the handrails and the ladder and the lights and other parts are covered. So as I talk today and walk you through our experience and recommendations and thoughts, keep in mind that's where this experience comes from. Um, I do want to start with a principle, and this principle is going to be reiterated throughout our time together this morning. So to step back, I serve on two boards of two charities. One I've been on, and they're both are helping kids, young people, high school students. One of the boards I've been on for 22 years now. The other one I founded 16 years ago. And when I have to make decisions as a board member, I always look back and reflect that as a volunteer board member, I have a not only a fiduciary responsibility, more importantly, I have a moral responsibility to the decisions that I make and the way that I vote. So I would encourage you to apply that same first step process as a board member when you're working with anything. And today I'm going to focus on pools. So and share that mindset with the rest of your board members. You will be, and you are, as a board member and as a CAM, budgets are set, budgets are imperfect. Um, but from a pool perspective, we have a moral responsibility at our company to meet the code. And so that goes to protect the swimmers, and then it also goes to protect the property themselves. So in this hour, um, I want to share what I think is important to help you pass those Florida Department of Health inspections. Um, but start with that first mindset. It's a moral responsibility. Unlike when one of my colleagues from Terrascape who takes care of the grass, I tell him, hey, if you guys mess up, okay, if you got some grass that may be dead or a plant, if we mess up, it impacts the health and safety of that swimmer. So you as a board member, remember that too. All right, let's walk through our objectives for this morning. Um, uh, we'll talk about the purpose. Why do they have the inspections? I've got someone taking care of my pool. Why do I need a third party to come in like the government and tell me what to do? So we'll share with you why that is important and what the scope of those inspections, what they're looking for. Number two is going to be the most common violations. The good news is the most common ones are very simple and I don't think I'll use the word easy, but you are able to prevent them. And I'll walk you through what some of those. The next one is if you create a proactive checklist, then you can prepare for those two inspections that come twice a year. And remember, I just said two. So there's 365 days in a year, and you're only inspected two out of the 365. But I'll walk you through the checklist and the good news behind that too. Number four, understand, the boards that I sit on, we have insurance to protect us. We're good Samaritans. You're a good Samaritan, but understand what are the legal liabilities. It doesn't relinquish us from the moral responsibility and the um, the liabilities are behind it. So it's easy to protect yourself, and I'll walk you through what I think the steps are to do that. And then the last one is the one about the ethics. Um, you remember, it's not about, we all have a fiduciary responsibility, making sure that we watch our budgets, but above that comes the ethics of keeping everyone safe. So I want to commend you for taking, first of all, for being a board member, and that's a volunteer position. CAMS, that's a paid position, and that is a really difficult. I think in our industry, my colleagues and I recognize that a CAM position is a really tough one. So I commend you for taking an hour out to sharpen your knife, learn more, and to understand how to take care of and maintain what most properties see as their most important amenity. I'd also encourage you to network with the other folks that are on here, get their names and go back and talk to them. Okay, so the purpose of the Department of Health, this is right from their website, and it's to protect. So it's to protect us. So I'm a citizen of the state of Florida. I'm a person, and so are you. I have kids, three of them, and I want to protect them. That's what the Department of Health does, and does it in many different ways, and promote and improve the health of people in Florida through integrated state, county, and community efforts. So if you go to their website, they do a lot more than what most citizens would think. And so the inspections are meant to do that. The good news is the inspections, they give you the list. So if you go back to the report, you'll see that list that they give to you. Um, Here's the other piece, the legal and ethical responsibilities. So by law, public pools and HOAs, hotels and apartments, it's not a question or a vote by a board to meet code. It's the law. So we can't vote to meet the law. We have to meet the law. So keep that in mind. So it's not at the discretion of the board, and we work with that a lot, that we're waiting for approvals on things. It has to be done for the safety of everyone involved. So when you go to a hotel, as an example, you expect when you go to that hotel and you check in at that nice Marriott or Hilton that pool is going to be safe. Well, the same is true for an HOA. Okay, so there's the types of inspections. Um, There are really three types, and the Florida Department of Health, they don't just inspect pools and the deck and the restrooms, but they also restaurants. So we're in the same classification, meaning that we need to meet the safety requirements. When you go to a restaurant, you expect that you're going to be safe and that the food being served is cooked properly and that the conditions behind the line, if you ever worked in a restaurant, you know that it should be to the standards that are healthy for everyone. This is what about a doctor's office? So they inspect doctor's offices, our water supply facilities. Today, of course, we're going to focus on pools. However, we need to keep that same mindset that it is for the protection of everyone. They generally come out twice a year. There was a period during COVID when things got really tight that not all pools were done twice a year. That they did a great job, and now they're back to twice a year. We track of the 100+ properties that we manage. We track when they came, what the inspections were, did we pass, did we have violations, all those kind of things. We track all that. So yes, they are back on track to come twice a year. Now, if you've got a property that has less than 28 units, the law says that that the department is not required to come and do those inspections. However, the law also says that you still have to meet code. It just says the department doesn't have to come out. Now you can call and they will come out. And that would be if I owned a condo, that's what I would do once a year. Just ask them to come out, and they'll do that. They'll get you on the schedule. Um, Typically, there's only a few cases that we see where someone will call and ask for an inspector to come out. Our inspectors are very good to work with. They know that sometimes that happens, and it doesn't change the way they inspect. Now they will focus on whatever the complaint was. So those are some triggers that might happen. Don't get offended by it. We're not offended. We just work to find out, did we make a mistake? Or is there something that needs to be corrected? Or is there a misinterpretation by the person that made the phone call? That's all. Let's move to some of the top violations. So their violations really go into, as far as corrective actions, into three categories. The first category is that the correction needs to occur by the next inspection. So some simple items for that are items that are not as severe and are very simple to make corrections on. So I'll show you an example of one that I experienced going out to a pool that I think you'll see some good humor on. So give me just 1 second. This is a pool that I went to, and I was fortunate that a volunteer board member walked up when I got there, and I was showing him a few things that needed to be corrected. So I asked him to participate with me and do what the inspector would do. So I asked him to kind of play the inspector. So let me share this video with you. What is this, Stan?
It's our little throw for the safety life saving ring.
Safety, does that mean it needs to be strong?
Yes.
Okay, well, you show me how strong is it? Wow, now that's pretty good for, how old are you?
81.
81? All right, good job.
Yeah.
We need to throw that garbage away. What is this, Stan? So Stan, at 81 years old, really humored me in doing this. But by the time I left, I think he understood that some changes needed to be made, and those changes were made. That's just a safety line. So as a good Samaritan at a pool, if you were to see someone that was having a challenge, you could throw them the life ring and the safety line that's up on the pool deck. And the challenge is if you go to pull that line and that person weighs 100, 150, 200 pounds, that's what's going to happen. He probably, good old Stan only applied maybe 10 pounds of tensile strength pull on that. So don't allow simple items like that. That would have failed inspection. Don't allow, this property does not get inspected twice a year. There's not enough units there for it to occur. So there was no oversight. And the service provider to me, looked like was doing a great job of cleaning the tile in the pool, and the filters looked good to me. but there were some items that maybe the service provider wasn't aware of that needed to be corrected, and that happens. So that's an example. The other example would be if you take a look closely at this picture, what's missing? Notice how if you've ever raced, I raced my family. I did for about 4 years, and at the New Smyrna racetrack, and there you have what you need: redundancy and oversight. So you have a crew chief, and then you have everyone that's got their roles in the race. And so in this case, the state requires that that's called a shepherd's hook. That's a Good Samaritan device to save someone who's drowning, that they're double bolted so that if one fails, you got the second one. Simple as that. Not a big deal, not hard to replace, super simple item. You should be able to tell it has to come on a solid 16-foot pole, not a telescoping pole that's going to come apart when you go to use it to save that person out of that pool. So this is another item that typically it will not be an immediate closure. They'll write it up as to correct on the next inspection. Go down to your pool when you get off this meeting, and make sure the safety line that Stan was able to break and pull apart, make sure it's not frayed. Go over to the life ring that safety line is tied to, and make sure it's securely fastened, everything's in good order. You'll notice it'll have mildew on it, just the way it is. We live in beautiful Florida. Then go over to the shepherd's hook and check that shepherd's hook and make sure it's double bolted. I've seen them where someone put electrical wire, number 10, number 12 through the holes and kind of wired it up. That's not appropriate. That might work for that day, but then run down to the hardware store and grab the proper hardware. Okay, so that's an example of where they're just going to say, hey, by your next inspection, take care of this, correct it. Health department's not going to get real crazy about it. These are low cost items. Now, what we do struggle with, though, is some properties, the board will say, well, we got to wait for approval for that. You can't do that. You've got to be ready for it. So either go take care of it yourself on the board, or when you receive an estimate or you get a statement from the guys that clean your pool, let's move to another one. Let's now move to the second level, which is it's going to be what's called a reinspection. So an example of a reinspection would be if a chemical feeder doesn't work. This is a chemical controller. So it tests the water. Those blue devices there that you see on the left-hand side, those are what are called probes. And what they're doing is they're testing the water to determine what is the sanitation level. It's not testing chlorine, it's testing the sanitation level, which then can go back to, is there chlorine in the water? And then it's also testing the pH level. If these controllers are not working properly, and if the feeders that these controllers are controlling are not working properly, that's typically a reinspection. They'll give you some time to get that corrected. They could make it an immediate closure. It is in the code, but the health department works with us and works with properties very well. That's typically we're going to come back next week, and they give you the date and the time, and they work with you on it. They're very courteous to do that. So let me talk about the 3 immediate closures with water chemistry. There's only 3. The health department only tests for 3 items. In the initial build, when we help the pool to be opened or on a brand new pool, they test for a lot more. But after that, twice a year, they don't test for more than 3. So for instance, they don't test for calcium, which is extremely important for the health of that pool, meaning not so much the swimmer, but the pool finish itself and all of the equipment. The health department's they shouldn't be concerned and bothered by that. That's up to the property. The health department is concerned with the health of the swimmer. They do not test for phosphates, and phosphates is food for water. And that is this time of year, you have to get that under control. Because that will impact your chlorine consumption and your algae growth. So I do think they should test for phosphates, but I don't write the code. So we make sure that we do that. They do not test for total dissolved solids. That's TDS, which also means junk in the water. When the TDS level, total dissolved solids, junk in the water gets high, chlorine becomes less effective. I do think that that would be a good thing to test for. That's important. So here are the three that they do test for. Number one, of course, is the sanitation, which in our market is sodium hypochlorite, liquid chlorine in almost all cases. They do test for what's the chlorine level. On chlorine, they test to make sure that it meets the code. There was a revision to the code 2 years ago that came out, and it tightened up to a level that I think is extremely difficult to meet on spas. So they tightened that up. It's got to be between 2 and 5 parts per million, and uh, that code is extremely difficult to meet, even with a controller like you see on the screen right now. On the pool, that was not changed. That's between a 1 to 10 for an outdoor pool. For an indoor pool, 2 to 5. So and if it's not within those ranges, they can close the pool. Sometimes they will, and sometimes they'll say, "Hey, we'll come back and reinspect if everything else looks in pretty good order." They're not looking to close the pool. They're looking to help you and guide you and teach. That's really the department's a great group to work with. All right, number one, chlorine. Number two, pH. So on pH, that is really important to your equipment, especially if you have a heater. And when it's out of range, go back to your heater warranty and it will tell you where it needs to be along with the other components, other pieces of the water chemistry. But the state only cares about, they don't care about your heater. What they care about is the safety of the swimmer and specifically our eyes. So the pH has to be within range there. They did modify the code, which we're thankful for that. The lower the pH, the more effective the chlorine level is to sanitize. And so they lowered it from a 7.2 to a 7. So we've got a much larger range now. Someone deemed that to be safe, 7 being neutral. And we're grateful for that. That works. So that can be immediate, but normally if it's close, they give us courtesy and allow us to come back and do a reinspection. The best thing to do when they're there is if you've got a maintenance team is to go let them do their job, be ready to make any corrections, and let your service company know they're there, and we can have a truck ready to go over if there's a mechanical failure and those kind of things. All right, number three. So the number three is what's called cyanuric acid. The cyanuric acid is an extremely important chemical to that pool. The state does, the Florida the department, if you're at 0, they don't care. That's fine with them. What they say is you can't be higher than a certain level. And the reason for that is for the safety that if that cyanuric acid, CYA, is too high, chlorine becomes ineffective and too slow to do its job. And it's called chlorine lock. So they will test that to make sure it's not too high, and it's 100 is what they're looking for. Anything below 100 parts per million, they're happy. And again, if you're at 0, they're happy. Let me tell you the negative. So you'll pass your inspection. You're at a 0 for that third piece of water chemistry that they test for, 0. And that pool will consume and require 7 times as much, 7, chlorine in order to keep that pool safe, 7 times as much. It will lose it 7 times as fast. So just imagine you've seen the guys using those little yellow jugs. They're carrying 7 of them when they're below a certain threshold of that cyanuric acid, versus a pool that's properly balanced will only have to use 1 to that 7. Now, why would you care about that? Most properties say, well, it's included with Pool Shore, we pay them one fee, or it's included with our service under our contract. Well, the reason why you should care is because in the season that we're in now, June, July, August, September, it will get to a point where that pool cannot hold a residual of chlorine. It just can't. I respectfully say I don't care what anyone says, it cannot. And let's say that I'm wrong and it can. Well, you don't want to add that much salt because that's what you're adding. Every time you add liquid chlorine, you're adding salt to that water. So the next test I would do is go down and see if the water is salty. Does it taste salty? That's improper pool care. That's years of adding too much chemicals to the water when you could have prevented it. So to close out the three that they check that can be immediate closure, but they will potentially work with you to make it a, hey, let's come back and do a reinspection, is if a feeder doesn't work and or if one of those pieces of chemistry are wrong. Make sure you're checking all of the chemistry though, including calcium, TDS. So make sure and do that. We talked about the cyanuric acid level being important. Let me share with you an immediate closure that we experienced. Now, this picture is a property that we just started helping, I don't know, maybe 2, 3 weeks ago. When I went out to look at the property, I just looked down at the main drain. I noticed there was a crack in it. You may have heard of what's called the Virginia Graham Baker Act. I won't get into the details of that, but what that caused a lot of change in our industry, which we needed. That's an immediate closure. So that main drain right there, the health inspector walks up, they're going to close it immediately. So what you want to do is always check that main drain. And I'll share with this one. I easily saw it was approved immediately. The cam on this property is an awesome cam. There was no, hey, we're waiting for the board to approve it. None of that mess. It was okay. Please get it done. And we got it done the next day, and I am thankful for that. That's a great cam. The We had another property though a couple years ago, 2 years ago, I think it was, where we missed it. The inspector was a new inspector, and I give her a lot of praise because she's got eagle eyes, and she saw this is an 8.5 foot deep pool where the main drain was properly secured. All of the grate itself was in good order, except some of the tabs. There were, I think, 2 tabs that were broken off. It wasn't all the way through, just the tab at the top was broken off, and she saw it. So she closed that pool on us, and she was courteous. She called the office, said, "Hey, I'm closing this pool because of this main drain cover." We immediately we stocked those. We got them in our warehouse. We had it reopened, within 24 hours. So check that out. That is an immediate. That's probably one of the, in my opinion, in this industry, to me, that's a most ethical. You've got to keep that corrected, and I still feel bad that we missed it somehow, which we did. So make sure. Let me move into regarding that though. The the installation of that controller that I showed you in the prior picture with the probes, the installation of this main drain cover, you can't hire an electrician, a licensed with the DBPR electrician to go change out a main drain cover. Even though they pass the background checks, they're smart people, very knowledgeable of electrical components, but they're not licensed to install this cover. You can't bring in a landscaper or a maintenance person. A CPO, certified pool operator, it's a weekend course you take to start your career in the pool industry. They're not licensed to install these. So you please make sure that you hire a licensed pool contractor. That's the only person, even a GC cannot install these. To dive the pool, remove the old, inspect the frame that the old grate was installed on, and then install the new cover. So please be aware of that, to make sure that you're covered on that. We had a customer that no, I'll get into another piece of main drain covers here a little bit regarding insurance and liability, that kind of stuff. Let's see if there's another point. Oh, the other point I made is your your service provider takes on a level of risk when they're servicing your pool because of the code and because of just legal liability. So what do you think happens if your main drain cover or your feeder doesn't work and then the board doesn't approve the replacement? That still puts a level of liability on your pool contractor that takes care of your pool. So in addition to having a moral responsibility, we as a company have had to let some customers go because they will not approve what needs to be done, and that's just not the way it should be. So please keep that in mind. Okay, let's move into prevention. So let me start with some great news. The great news is, unlike, I don't know if you remember being in high school, you'd have some teachers. I had a social studies teacher one time, and this guy was awesome. I mean, just so funny, so cool. Loved going to his class. And when he would do his reviews before tests, he would tell you what's on the test, and all you had to do was write that down. I don't know if I don't know if I believe in all that, but and that's probably the right approach. But I guess that's what he thought was most important for you to know, and he kind of netted it out for you. Well, the health department does the same. They net it out what you need to do, and the awesome news is they give you the checklist. So that checklist um, is included in your twice a year inspections. So if you take a look at what the inspection report on the top right, it's it'll tell you a little bit about what I shared with you before about, did it pass? Did we pass? Was there another next inspection date? Or when is the reinspection? Those kind of things. It'll also, if you flow down this report, um, on the bottom left-hand side of that first box, make sure that you've got your service provider in there. That way your service provider also gets a copy. You want full transparency, full transparency. You don't want to not keep it from them. I've had properties say, no, we don't want them to know. And I go, well, we're not going to work with that property. We want full transparency. We want to know what's been missed. By the way, we can just call and get it anyway. So what kind of partner is that, right? You want to have a partner that's with you hand in hand and protecting the property. Well, the best way to protect a property is to know what was on the inspection report. So make sure that your service provider gets that. Make sure if your maintenance team is taking care of the pool, get them a copy. So I'll tell you our procedures here. We the inspector emails a copy to the CAM and to us. We then, upon receipt of that, log it in our system, and then we print out a copy of it. And if there's any X marks down below under the any infractions or violations, we highlight those infraction and violations. We then go back to our software to see, did we send an estimate for that infraction or violation? We then go to the service team the following morning and share it with them and review it with them so that they know. So do that same process. If you do that, you're coaching and teaching and giving full transparency and honesty back to the people that are taking care of your pool. Again, whether it's your maintenance staff, which is awesome because they're on site, hopefully, 4 or 5, or in some cases, they have coverage for every day of the week. So make sure and implement that. That's best practices, transparency. It's not a secret. You don't want it to be a secret. Then, now in this report, we did not have any violations. Let's say that we did. It's very common. It is common to have an X down there. It does happen. It's nothing to get excited about. Just make sure that you have transparency about that. So let's move to the next step. Inside of this inspection report, there is a link that you click on, and it will take you to the code. So for instance, your maintenance team, they're responsible for a lot of things, not just the pool. They probably do the pool first thing they come in the morning. They spend an hour or so taking care of that, cleaning the tile, testing the chlorine and the pH, cleaning the filters as needed. And then they move on to the rest of their day of, hopefully making everyone happy. That's a tough job. So they are probably not familiar with what's called the 64E-9. That 64E-9, there's a link right on this inspection report that'll tell you the detail behind each one of any of these violations. And the inspector will point you directly to the exact numerical number of that code. And you can just do a Control F search on it and it'll take you right to it. You go, oh, this is what I need to fix. Now, of course, the inspector too, if the maintenance team is there or your service provider there, they will verbally tell you what to do also. So it's easy. It's just like my social studies teacher was. They tell you the answer. My history teachers in high school. So make sure to take that. Now, if you've got a service company, if you've got a maintenance team and or a service company taking care of it, depending upon who the service company is, print out the 64E-9. It's 15 pages. Based on your properties, some of those pages won't even be applicable because it's based on what was required during the building phase. So print that out, put it in a binder So now you've got transparency and you've got something you can, you got a kind of a Bible you can go back to and read the verse and figure out, okay, this is what I need to do. Simple as that. It's not complicated. Now, to be fair and realistic, you know your pool, you know your team that's taken care of, you know your maintenance staff and how burdened or how much time they have, you know your service team, the service company you hired. If you're comfortable, then hold them accountable. And when I say hold them accountable, make it easy for them, provide them with the right tools. Um, if you think it would be best to have a third party contact a pool contractor that specializes in commercial and get them to come out and just do a separate set of eyes on it. And, you can say, hey, the health department does that for us. But I can give you an examples, and I'm happy to share some of those if you ask me questions later or you call us as to where it's would be important to go beyond that. The health department's only concerned with certain items that impact the health of your swimmers. They're not pool contractors, so they don't have some of the knowledge to deal with your finish and the importance of all the halo effect of water chemistry and proper hydraulics. So just keep that in mind. And to be fair, again, to the people that do a great job cleaning your pool, they took a weekend course, 2-day course, and it might have been 4 or 5, 6 years ago until the CPO expires. It was an open book course, and to be fair to them, they probably don't know what 64-E really means, and don't even have a copy of it. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. I mean it's just not in purview of what they do typically. So think about maybe getting a fresh set of eyes on looking at that. Let's move to the log. All right, write this down, please. Here's the action item. We talked about walking out to your pool. This goes for CAMs and board members. Now, you're not the police. Don't come out with a mindset of integrity, a mindset of I'm here to help, a mindset of I want to make it easier for my team and I want to join them in doing a great job. So you're going to go out to the pool and look at the shepherd's hook. You're going to do what that 81-year-old Stan did. You're going to try to pull that safety line and see if it is secure enough. The third thing I would do, and this is a telltale sign, is walk down to that pump room. Look for, or the equipment cabinet that's on the deck. Look for that sheet right there that I just showed you on that clipboard. So this sheet shows when I go out to a pool. Last week I went to 8 commercial pools and looked at them. 8. I can tell within moments the character of the person after. I shouldn't have said that. I can tell the diligence. Let me reframe the word character. Let me put the word diligence. I can see the diligence of the operator of that pool by looking at that sheet. It tells you so much about just like I'll say a doctor or an attorney, or your accountant. If they're being diligent with their process, you have a much higher probability of being healthy and saving you from legal risk and financial success with your accountant. Well, the same is true with the person who takes care of that pool. This log, and this is the first time I've ever seen this. I use this as an example just to be a little bit funny. They used a monthly sheet for 3 months. That's unethical to me because, and then let me move to the next point. The next point is this service provider cleans that pool Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, but notice every single day there's readings in there. That's unethical. And the health department is not, they understand this. So when they walk up to your pool, when they see this is a red flag to them, they recognize this type of behavior. So what you want to do is, again, you're not throwing a rock, you're not throwing a stone, but you want honesty and transparency. Go back to whoever's filling your logs out and just take a look and ask them where can you help? And I'll give you my perspective on how to do that in just another moment. Notice to the far right, though, there's no other notes about the care of that pool. So if your grandmother was staying at an assisted living center and part of that job is at assisted living centers, they keep good copious notes about the care of your grandmother, you would expect that to occur. Well, the same is true for a pool. So now the second log, the one to the right, this is an example of someone that's diligent. This technician, notice how there's certain days in there where there's nothing that's written down on those certain days. Well, that's the truth. The truth is it was not tested on those days because those are not service days. So now when you read this, you can say, okay, I've got a document that I can look at and I can understand the health of that pool. The health inspector says the same thing. Now they can believe the document. That's so the one on the left is a code violation. Not only is it a lie, but it's not proper documentation. 3 months on 1 month's health log is not diligence. That is a code violation. It's not an immediate closure, but it'll get notated. The other part, the health inspector is going to look and see, okay, is this pool being backwashed? Well, all of those notes are put on the log to the right. It's also showing trends of water chemistry, and it's believable. It allows the technician, the health inspector, to make changes based upon facts that are believable. It's also got initials, so you know who did what on what date. And so the one to the right also allows an inspector, it'll, just like when you walk up somewhere and you see diligence, then you're not as eagle-eyed to try to look for other items. Not that we're trying to hide anything, but it says, okay, this pool is being properly maintained. Let's move now. Let me see if there's another. Okay, so to close out on that last slide I just showed you, number 3 action item is go look at the pool log. And let me repeat again that if you're in a community with less than 28 units, the code still says you have to meet the code. You just won't be inspected. But do you care if diligence is given to that pool log? You should. You're on the board and you got a moral responsibility. So yes, please make sure to look at that and make some determination. Okay, legal consideration. So the Florida Department of Health has duties and powers regarding the safety and the health of the public, along with enforcement rights. So that goes back to the pool being closed as an example. So make sure that you're just following the code. And again, it's super easy. The code is there's a link, and we're happy to share that with you too that you can use. I want to give you a story now, a quick one with that insurance and liability protection. This is the first time I've had this incident occur, but last week we were called by a great customer that has 3 commercial pools, and they received a cancellation from their insurance company because they didn't meet code. They didn't meet what was called the Virginia Graham Baker Act, which is goes back to the main drain cover. So they didn't have proof that the age of the cover was within code. The manufacturer of the covers state the lifespan of the covers. So the good news is it's an easy fix. You just dive the pool. Again, you got to hire a certified pool contractor in the state of Florida. Dive the pool, inspect everything, take out the old, throw it away, install the new, and then the contractor signs a letter that comes from the manufacturer, that grate, and certifies that that main drain cover is compliant. And then that letter gets sent to the insurance company. So if that happens, it's a simple process. Don't worry about it. Just get it done. So make sure and call your pool contractor to help you with that. And remember, the board has that fiduciary responsibility to follow what the state says, and that's what they say. So if you don't have the letter, you may want to look into that as opposed to wait for your insurance company. So once again, just like a licensed electrician is required to complete electrical work, you can't get a roofer to do electrical work, and you can't get a electrician to do roofing work. You got to make sure you get the contractor to do it. Have someone that you feel comfortable with, and there's some good ones out here. So make sure and do that. Okay, let's move to the sign that we never want to see. I tell our team that we have a moral responsibility to the safety of the swimmers. It's as simple as that. And, these pools are under our care. You do too. So just like that doctor has a moral responsibility to prescribe the right medicine, to check up with that patient, to make sure it's right, your pool company has that same responsibility along with the board and the CAM. So I want to go back to the word budget. You know, in our business and in our field, um, we take it seriously. And sometimes we get the, hey, listen, we've got to go get the approval for this. So I'm going to recommend that you go ahead and get pre-approval. There's certain items that you know we're going to break. They're going to break. And when they break, it's already pre-approved. So an example, a chemical feeder. If you want to pass inspections and you don't want to disrupt your service and your maintenance team, you may have one on, you know, a spare one. You know it's going to go bad. It's not complicated. Or at least have the approval ready so that your provider can take care of it. Another issue would be like, say, black algae. So make sure that you're communicating that to your property. You know, when a pool gets black algae, the finish is older, it's more prone to get it. Once it's got it, it's similar to herpes. You got it, so you just got to treat it. Don't even think about it. So that's a terrible example, but it's the truth. When your provider comes to you and says they've got it, we need to be transparent to the homeowners, close the pool, treat it, and typically you can open it up within 24 hours. I think we've got 3 or 4 pools closed right now that we're going to reopen today or tomorrow. It's just part of the business and get it done. The other moral responsibility part is, you know, as a board member, when you're in that board meeting and you'll have another board member that ethically thinks they're doing the right thing by, you know, watching the fiduciary responsibility to save the homeowners money, educate them on that and let them know that, you know, everything is up. So the budget of last year is not the budget of this year, and the legal responsibility supersedes the fiduciary responsibility or the financial. One thing that happens in this business, which is not moral and not ethical, is boards, not so much CAMs, but boards will put pressure on their maintenance team or their service team to not make repairs that they need to make. So don't do that. Do not do that. That is not ethical. Don't do it. Do not train service providers and maintenance teams to kick the can. Please don't do that. It's just not ethical. Okay, so let's move. We're going to take a test here in just a sec, couple Q&A. So the action plan to net this out, I've said it a couple times, please go back to the inspection report. It's right there. Just like my social studies teacher, they tell you what they're going to ask you. They tell you what they're going to come back and look at. And if you don't understand the bullets there, not a big deal. Just go get the 64E, download it. This is the summary, excuse me, this is the first page. It's a 15-page document. A lot of the pages aren't applicable to you anyway. Don't worry about it. You can just do a Control F and find the section that you did pass. Training for your staff and vendors. So the other thing to do is, just because someone's got a CPO, tell them to pull that book out. It's a great resource. I keep mine under the seat of my truck. The other thing is continuing education. Make an investment. If you've got a good maintenance team, make an investment in that team and have them sign up for a refresher course. All right, so let's ask key takeaways, and then I'll walk through some scenarios. Let me walk through evaluation questions. So the first one says, what is the most common inspection by the Florida Department of Health? Are they looking at landscaping, electrical outlets? Well, yes, they do look at electrical outlets. The pool and spa or roofs? They don't care about roofs. So it's going to be, you know, pool and spa areas. How often does the Department of Health conduct their inspections? How often? Once a month? That'd be nice, but they don't have the bandwidth for that. Twice a year? Every 5 years? Or only upon a complaint? Well, if you complain, they'll come out, but it's twice a year is the answer. And a complaint, you can just make a phone call to them and they'll put you on the schedule. They're very courteous. They're awesome to work with. What's the key reason to maintain an inspection log? This is my pet peeve right here. As a pool contractor, owner of a company with 26 people, this one, the inspection log to me is so important, that monthly log. So what's the key reason to make sure that log is correct? Remember, that's the third item you're going to go take a look at today. Is it to calculate HOA dues? To help avoid violations that we talked about today? to track vendor expenses or to reduce insurance premiums. Now, I think the insurance premium, I would use that, but it's really to help the violations. But it in a halo effect, hopefully it could help you reduce premiums if you don't have any claims or there's no issues. If you got a Morgan lawsuit, that's going to be a problem. Which Florida statute relates most directly to DOA's compliance of HOAs associations? Florida Statute 718. So with that, I'm going to open it up to. Oh, now I got one more. Sorry. A more responsibility of the board member includes minimizing cost at all times, delegating all tasks to vendors, ensuring residents' health and safety, or posting inspection reports online only. And of course, it's ensuring the health and safety. What's the benefit of having a pre-inspection checklist? To impress the residences, to reduce board meetings, to ensure compliance and avoid surprises, or where it decreases rental value. Well, of course, you want to avoid surprises and you want to be compliant because you want that pool healthy. If an association fails a inspection report, what can happen? The pool can be closed. You can reduce your taxes. The board has a resignation. We've seen that, or nothing significant. Well, the pool can be closed. Which is the following is the best practice for CAMs? Wait for the DOH notice before acting. Assume vendors are always compliant, or conduct regular checks, or delegate everything to the board. We'll conduct regular internal checks. So go down to those 3 items today. So with that, I'm going to open it up if there's any questions.
There are, Sean. Thank you so much. There's so much that goes into this, and thank you for providing insight and more information for the CAMs and board members. First question that came in was from Christina. What do you look for to find any issues with the drain?
Go get a little bit of Dawn soap and shoot that Dawn soap onto the top of the water. That's going to calm that water down. Now you're going to have awesome visibility. Or you could dive the pool if you want, but you'll get plenty of visibility. And what you're looking for is on those tabs. If you see any cracks like the picture I showed, that one was extremely obvious. I walked up and saw it, but sometimes you're going to miss it. Look for a broken tab. Look for uniformity on that main drain cover.
Okay, next question. If the board sets a standard to chain the pool during a storm, are they also setting an expectation that every time it storms, this will happen? My fear is that the one time the pool doesn't get locked, something will happen and the injured party will claim that the pool was deemed safe because it wasn't padlocked. I also fear they put themselves at risk to rush around the bad weather by trying to lock it. Thanks for your thoughts on that.
I'm not sure I understood the question. So the question was if we lock the pool up pre-storm, is there a liability for that?
If the board sets a standard to chain the pool during a storm, are they also setting an expectation that every time it storms, this will happen?
I don't think so. I'm not an attorney, but I'll give you my experience and my thought as being on 2 boards, and I've been on 4 boards my entire life. I think we are good Samaritans, and I think if we use common sense, and I think locking if you want to lock up the pool area, to me that's a good step to take. I mean, you're showing diligence. If you don't do it one time, I tell you what we do. When we don't think it's safe, we're not going to go out, but we're going to get out there as quickly as we can. So I think with that board member, if you don't feel safe to lock it, or you just plain forget, I don't see how you could have liability behind that.
Okay. It looks like Barbara, you had your hand up if you want to put your question in the chat. Also, if anyone else wants to put their questions into the chat, I've enabled it so that everyone can see the questions. We've just got a few more minutes with Sean. Let's take advantage of his expertise. Also, I'm popping in the chat the information for the Get Updated legislative update for you to cut and paste and register. Do we have any other questions? Do we have any other questions?
I see a question in the Q&A, Sean. It says the skimmer water levels. If there's no water if the water in our pool is not flowing over the skimmers, or it's not, The pool company says if they realize water levels, they have to recap chemicals. Isn't that their job? I'm not really sure I understand that, but I guess they're saying if they add more water, you know, is that going to affect the chemicals, et cetera? And shouldn't the pool company be handling that?
My gut tells me the pool leaks. So let me tell you a common challenge in this industry. And I don't want to offend any board members when I say this, but it's your pool. So if the pool leaks, you got to get the leak fixed. A pool company can't maintain your pool if the pool leaks. So if the pool is low right now, most pools are high right now. By code, there's two codes here. One, by code, yes, the water is supposed to, must, not supposed to, must. By code must be skimmed. The worst water is the first 12 inches. So the top of that pool, that's the worst water. That's where the oils are. That's where the heat, the highest heat is. So right now you got a code violation. Yes, it is supposed to skim. And I've been written up for that before. We all have. Number two, by code, you must have an autofill that manages that water level. But let's move to the root cause. If the root cause is the pool leaks, and if it's low right now, that pool leaks, all pools are high right now, then I'd go back to the autofill. I would partner with my pool service provider, not blame them, but ask them the question. Hey, is there a problem we can help you with here? Does the autofill work? Is our pool leaking? Water chemistry will tell you the truth.
Okay, and then I saw Joseph rather had a question. If you want to go ahead and type that into the chat for everyone. Also, I can't speak highly enough of the team over at ProServe Pools. We have been working with them in many ways for a while now. Their contact information is all right here on, do you have a last slide where your contact information is, Sean? Maybe
I
on the
do.
So then we can make sure that everybody has your contact information for any consultations, screenshot, take your phone out, snap a picture. And then as we are wrapping up here, I'm also going to insert into the chat how you get credit for this course. If you are a CAM, you will need to email Lindsay at lindsay@yourcoastalliving.com, your license number, your CAM license number, and the name as it appears on your license. So if on your license it says Richard, don't put Rick because it will get kicked back, and Lindsay will take care of that for ProServe Pools today. Anyone else have any other questions? It's 10:30. We hit it right on time. Thank you,
Yay.
Sean. Anyone else? I think that was very informative and it went over a lot. Thank you so much, Sean.
Good deal.
Okay, everyone, we'll have a 10-minute break and we'll be back at 10:40 with Insurance Office of America. Again, the agenda for today is in the webinar chat. So please go ahead and review that. And please provide the email. Again, Alina, it's in the chat and I'll put it in again to everyone for your convenience. Thanks, Sean. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Have a great day.
You too.